The first 3 weeks of the eruption here in Hawaii, crazy things would happen in the middle of the night. A new fissure would open up and it would threaten a new neighborhood. Thousands of people were evacuated from their homes. I started the Hawaii Tracker Facebook group to help people understand what's going on and get their questions answered.
Hey, how's it going? We're live. This is Fissure 20.
We had hundreds of people all throughout the neighborhoods sending in videos, articles, and images. We spend a lot of time making sure the accurate information gets out.
This is live. There's still lava moving.
They weren't just sharing a story, they were helping their neighbor. If a family was being evacuated, a group would just jump in and help out. So it was huge. They were watching out for each other.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming. Thank you for the support from everybody.
As we go through this, we're growing closer together as a community. When tragedies like this strike, you really realize how much you need each other.
Aloha, everybody. I'm geologist Philip Ong, here with Mr. Dane DuPont of Hawaii Tracker and the Hawaiian Volcano Education and Resilience Institute, aka HVERI, as well as our ASL interpreters. We have Kiri and Dano helping us out once again today. Mahalo, you guys. So, breaking news. Kilauea is erupting once again for the third time in 2023. Today is September 10th. It's a Sunday. At 3:15 p.m., just over an hour ago and a bit, Kilauea started erupting at its summit. You can see the inset image here. The eruption has been contained within a summit so far, erupting across the edge of the eastern segment of the recent lava lake, as well as onto the downdrop block to the east. All of that inset within the collapse zone of 2018. So it's still in the crater, inset, no threat to people, apart from the gas coming out for the next few days is expected to be very intense, will affect nearby communities of Volcano, downwind to Pahala, Ocean View, and possibly leeward to the Kona side as well. So that is the main concern for people at this point in time. If anyone in the area has respiratory issues, it's time to take precautions, whether that's closing your windows, air filters, any of those things that you need to do. Now is the time. We expect that to be bad for the next few days, and then to drop off pretty quickly thereafter, right? So it's obviously not as good as when it's in pause as we had yesterday, for example. But in about a week's time, it'll be a lot less intense than it's going to be in the next 2 days here. So that's the main impact that we have. So we switch this around for you guys here and put our tags on screen and let you say something, Dane, here. I just kind of wanted to make sure we got our summary out real quick. But how are you today? It's been exciting. You watched the earthquakes come up.
Yeah, definitely, pretty exciting stuff. Make sure I'm not muted here. Yeah. And then the opening minutes of it, pretty dramatic as well. Just you sitting there waiting for it, seeing that tremor, seeing the tilt spike, seeing all these indicators that it's coming. And then just the camera, if you were watching it live, the camera pans away and then you just see a puff of smoke and it's like, okay, that looks pretty suspicious right there. But it was kind of like the Mauna Loa eruption that way, where it's like we don't see it initially, and then you're just like, but I think it's there. I mean, what else would be doing that, right? But then we see it like a few seconds later. And
yeah, we're kind of splitting hairs, right? Because
it's cool,
we're spoiled to have it every few seconds as opposed to every hour or every day or what have you. So we actually got it within a few minutes, every few seconds even.
Yeah.
So pretty cool. So this image here, maybe I can talk through it just to orient whoever is joining in here. I have it zoomed in a little bit. Let's see if I can adjust it out a little bit to what the USGS has here. Maybe this is as good as I can get. Oh, no, there it goes. All right, so what you see here is there's a cliff at the very top of the image right there. That's a cliff that's within the crater, the actual caldera wall. So above this ledge in that direction would be, for example, the volcano house. So within the crater, there is this inner down drop block cliff right there. And that's this area over here, which until recently has not been covered in lava. There was eruption in June that lasted a little under 2 weeks that splashed some lava up in this area right in here on the ledge. And it actually threatened one of the web cameras, which was then moved back to this back wall. So what you see is that's interesting is the lava is coming up through the crusted lava lake that existed before. That's this area that's all dark through here. And in fact, lava is flooding this area once again. You see one really big channel flowing off in this direction. It seems to be being fed from all these different vents here. There's another series of vents feeding a channel off this direction. Really, the only thing in this foreground that's not getting covered in lava, it looks like there's one bit of island right here that's still sticking above the rest. But otherwise, lava seems to be flooding across this eastern part of the crater floor, covering everything. But the crack, which opened up originally on this edge right in here, has spread into the crater itself, but also out of that innermost pit onto that down drop block. And if I can zoom it in all the way to this far edge over here, you see these are black outlines of new flows that are erupting onto this down drop block. This one here is this farthest one upslope at the actual base of the down drop block cliff here, putting out a little bit of a flow so far. But interesting because this is the most uphill one, the highest elevation vent here. You see the next ones down are actually putting out quite a bit of gas puffing and making their own flows as well. And these are now streaming back into the crater too. Right, so we'll see as time goes on if all these vents remain open or if this focuses to the uphill vents over here as we saw in the previous eruption in June. That's the novelty of what's developing now. The fissures often can evolve over the first 1 to 2 hours, opening and migrating and adjusting. So we have to see if this is how it truly stabilizes or if something else is yet to come. But we wanted to get on the air here and share with you guys that the eruption is happening at the summit within the crater. There are no signs of any changes on the rift zones of the volcano and no threat to people as a result of that. So having said all that, I can maybe take us through a little bit of the monitoring signals. I will note that there was that earthquake swarm that happened earlier. Dane posted a summary on Hawaii Tracker. The USGS put out an alert at 2:52 p.m., raising the alert level from advisory to watch and from yellow to orange, noting that pattern of very strong surface deformation, as well as the great number of earthquakes. Then there was another notice put out at 3:18 p.m. just after the eruption occurs. And they note that at approximately 3:15 p.m. on September 10th, HVO observed eruptive activity in the summit and field reports as well. So they have personnel stationed in the field. I'm watching this as well, so we'll likely get many more videos and information as time goes on here. They do note the eruption was preceded by a period of strong seismicity and rapid uplift of the summit. So as a result, we go from watch to warning, we go from orange to red, and as we've seen in the past, once we get past these first few phases, which can have higher fountains of lava, higher gas outbursts, usually after a couple of days of it not doing anything too dangerous, they'll drop it back to an orange, and it'll remain at that stage as it erupts for however long that might actually last. So that is the USGS report here. They're in constant communication with the national park. All the activity is confined within the park entirely here. So that's the USGS updates. And we do have from Hawaii County as well. Civil Defense has put out a message at 4 p.m. noting HVO reports an eruption. Eruptions confined within Haleʻiʻama'u. There are no communities threatened at this time. No community to monitor, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, this is great. I wish they would note the VOG a little bit more, but all good as far as the lava threat. So coming to our graphs here, we can look at make sure this is most current because information is coming in quick here. So our most recent 2-day tilt, here we are, our little wiggles from this last week. This looks like this very gentle rise and gentle fall because the scale has been extremely magnified here, or zoomed out, I should say, running from 30 microradians to 0. That's the measure of the angle of tilt of the ground. So the ground was adjusting, wiggling a little bit during these last day and a half or so. And you see this afternoon, it really dramatically shot up. It was during this phase that that orange alert was issued right through there. When you saw the ground starting to bulge upwards really, really fast, right? We're talking about, this is from -2 to call it 28. That's 30 microradians of bulging. And when it reached the breaking point, the lava came to the surface, and we see now the ground tilt relieving. It's almost like a big inhale, and then an exhale finally coming out as the lava is extruded above the ground here. And we'll likely expect to see this come down and eventually level off. And so that's the sign that we're looking for. Zooming it out for the last week, you see that same pattern. You have more of the wiggles in the weeks ahead of that. And what I'm hoping to see at some point here is this lava depth plot getting updated, but I guess the lava has not yet reached the western part of the crater where this laser is pointed. And that's something we'll note to try to measure and gauge how much lava is erupting into the crater. Usually the first day is the most volume of lava, the most spectacular, the best viewing, and the worst traffic. So that's all going to be something we'll touch on here shortly, but I expect many of you who are able to will be watching on the webcams, on the live streams, or going in person if you're able, because that's what this eruption is a great opportunity to view and experience and learn about the volcano without the actual threat to people. So earthquakes have come up, and I'll show those here in a second. The numbers are a little bit less relevant now. Here's the last week, and this is the burst that we just had here in the last few hours at the surface, near surface areas. So these will look more interesting once the day is actually complete, but we actually expect earthquake levels to drop from here on out because earthquakes normally indicate the pressurization of the underground areas. The lava breaks to the surface, the pressure is being relieved, and you see instead of the cracking of the ground underground, you see what we call the tremor, the vibration, as the lava is exiting that pipeline to the surface. So once again, nothing showing our lava depth on the western crater, and here's our 1 month of tilt showing once again that spike, looking pretty dramatic here at the end of what you can see was a fairly long-standing buildup, right? We've been talking about earthquakes and tilt on a volcano summit for about a month now. And here it is finally popping up to the surface. So we have this other station that's over further to the southwest at the Sand Hill Station. We've been looking at this for a little while because this blue line is that center of Haleʻiʻama'u where we have eruption now. And as we noted, that area to the south seems to bulge almost like a pressure tank in some way. And that's what this green line was indicating to us over the last couple of weeks, how dramatically that area was really filling up. And so we're not really that shocked that we see these earthquakes leading to an eruption. Today, you can see that even along the green line here, these vertical spikes going downwards, these are earthquakes that are rocking the ground tilt meter as well. So you start to see that they're getting pretty intense, and at least locally in this area, getting very, very dramatic. So we had some expectation that something might come soon. Then again, we've been shifting gears here for the last month, and it just finally broke to the surface today. Notably, on the East Rift Zone, the tilt is still going downwards. So the ground is still sagging in the East Rift Zone. And since there's a pathway out at the surface at the summit, we're not expecting anything to happen on the Rift Zone, whether it be the Southeast Rift Zone shown here or the Southwest Rift Zone either. Our SO2 values are a little bit harder to pick up so soon when eruptions begun just an hour and a half ago. These values that we often see reported in tons per day here with single plots every few days are measured by the USGS periodically. And they have to do a full scan of the crater to come up with a measurement. So we don't have one of these yet. We'll likely get one tomorrow. You can see, though, that the previous measurements have been in a range of 70 to 85 tons per day, but it's expected to jump quite a bit higher. We can look at these other ppm. These are single stations. So now you're measuring gas at a single point on the ground. This relies a lot on where the actual vent is and which way the gas is blowing, whether it blows across one of these stations or not. So if it does, we'd expect this level to spike a lot higher than it's less than 1 ppm now, but we have these up now just in case we can see something come up. Cone Peak, Sand Hill, here we go. PKE station is showing a jump up to over 1 ppm downwind in the Southwest Rift Zone. And that'll be what we see more of as the gas effects become wider spread here in the next few hours. So over the last year, this is what the summit SO2 looks like. And so we've been in this range of 70 to 90 over the last week, last month really. But I wanted to show this because our last eruption in June, we reached up to 75,000 tons per day. Say it again, 75,000 tons per day. The eruption prior to that, in January, we reached 15,000 tons per day. So really our values of less than 100 are quite small for the volcano, even though those values are detectable by people and can be bothersome as well. But it's a whole different experience when you're having tens of thousands, and that's why I issued a precautionary warning for anyone with respiratory issues here. Here are our earthquake plots for the last year. You can see them building up earthquakes per week. This is a 1,000 threshold right here. So we've been at close to 1,000 earthquakes per week for the last 3 weeks. And the week before that, we were at 700 or so. So it's really been the last month of buildup. That's what's shown in the earthquakes here best. In the GPS, you can see that the crater has been stretching apart, wiggling back and forth. And this will be something we'll have to update later as well. But you can see it was still stretching at the summit and at the rift zone, contracting as the line is going the opposite direction, going downhill. So as we wrap up the earthquakes here, last week of earthquakes on a map, building up to this eruption today, and the last month of earthquakes building up to this eruption. See, fully centered around the summit and this Southwest Rift connector, and notably absent, nothing on the East Rift Zone, even the Upper East Rift connector, Middle East Rift, Lower East Rift, nothing on the Rift Zone itself. You do see this population to the south, which is a south flank that moves in adjustment as the summit pushes it to the side there. So that's all normal and still no threat to the people on the East Rift Zone here. That, I believe, is the monitoring signals that we have. I do want to show the earthquakes as well. So looking at the earthquakes from today, these are just today. And you see there are 43 earthquakes shown on this panel for today. The largest of which I believe was a 3.8. Let's sort this. So it's been revised to a 3.5 that occurred here at 1.2 miles depth at the southern edge of the caldera. There was as well a 3.2, 0.3 miles deep just next to that. That was 1 minute after the other one. So it was that sequence, 3.5, 3.2, that likely was initiation of that upwards deformation, and then the escape and eruption that we have seen now. And eruption itself, just to put it in perspective on this map here, is occurring on this edge of the lava lake through here, and the fissure seems to cut up across the downdrop block in this direction, more or less. And somewhere at the base down over here, it may be more like this. It's hard to tell from the angle exactly. But somewhere at the base of this cliff, you're having that little vent, and so that's the area of the fissure. It's something like that, as we can more or less sketch it now. And if I can zoom it out, that's all within a crater right there, all within a caldera, within a national park, and really far from any people. The closest people will be Volcano Village, uphill, all the way up here. And not at threat unless there are big explosions, which are not expected here. So those are the earthquakes. There are some interesting things to review here. I thought one that we could look at is this depth versus time plot from the USGS. I've done this just for the last 2 days here, just to show you the difference in the earthquakes buildup. So here is that more sporadic quaking as events are building pressure within a reservoir. And this is what it actually looks like for future reference. This line of red, that's almost like a straight up and down line that starts at depth and starts shooting upwards. That's the upward migration that we see that prompted eruption right here today. The other thing to note is I'm going to pull this off of the Two Pineapples live stream. They had some spectrograms here noted, right? And you can see these vertical dark red lines are all little earthquakes, and you can see how many earthquakes are happening, and nearly constant earthquakes building up over the last couple hours here prior to the first lava opening up on the screen. And so that's what you see here in the background is that first capture of lava from that webcam, and you note how it's actually within the pit. There's the edge of the crater right back there. Right now you have the fissure going all the way back up to here somewhere, something like that. And you can't see much of this in-between zone or this back cliff right in here, but this initial image does show you that starting off location, and it seems to have spread, as we mentioned, both directions, out and in. Okay, so maybe we can just do a quick round of webcams here. Let me make sure this is also loaded to current, since we're covering breaking news here. There's our KW camera looking across the caldera. There's that eastern edge and that fissure up the eastern downdrop block. Our most recent eruption back in June was way over here, this other far side of the crater, in case you're wondering. That might be, I'd have to measure it, but I would guess something like a mile apart. Maybe it's a little less than that, but it's a decent distance across there. So interesting how it's come up around the edge of a recent lava lake as well, but not in exactly the same location. The other really interesting thing to note here, it's a little bit hard to see, but if I zoom it in right in there, you'll note that this right here is the leading edge of the lava flow that's coming around. So if I zoom it back out, you can see that as well. That's this big river that's coming around this kind of trough that exists on the edge of the crater floor. And that's the big lava flow, and that's where it's going right now. So you can see it's really covering this area and will likely flow back around. We have not yet seen lava pop up anywhere in the middle. In the past, we've seen this western basin right here reoccupy with lava. As lava pushes from below this hardened crust, it often finds those lava tubes and pathways to refill this thing. So that'll be a big question mark still, whether that is still coming in the next few hours. And that's the curiosity, what we might see tonight as the landscape changes the most dramatically during these first few days of eruptions. That's a KW camera. F1 camera isn't exactly centered on our eruption, but you see there is the eruption site at the top of the view. Earlier, you're only seeing this flow at the very, very top, but now you see the similar wraparound thermal image coming around here, thermal signature coming through. So there is that V1. This is captured from that live camera, so I won't focus on that again quite yet. We'll come back to this one. The S1 camera in the south, the eruption is way more that way. So this is actually a good view of what the VOG looks like. This is basically has become the VOG camera. There is that giant cloud of VOG that's starting to blow across the landscape here. And VOG is volcanic fog. It's composed of sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide and water vapor and lots of little shards of glass as well. So that's the part that's the largest hazard. So now we're at the B1 camera. This is the one that was moved from down in this area up onto this upper cliff during the early parts of the June eruption. So it's seeing the massive VOG cloud as well blowing off here to the southwest. That eruption site right there and goes in that kind of orientation, with maybe here at the very far right side, maybe there's that at the very bottom of a cliff vent right over there in that far corner. And so we'll have lots more animations we can show during our next update, and much more we can cover as far as how this is evolving. We just want to make sure to show you what's happening in its first opening phases as we know right now. So now we're to the B2 camera, and the B2 camera was the one that was moved onto that ledge just this past week, maybe a week and a half ago now. Slightly further to the south, so it's on a higher cliff above the lava than the previous one that had to get rescued. But that means this doesn't quite have that view front and center here. However, as lava fills and wraps around, right, it seems like it's mostly going that way. And I can't tell from the foreground here if there's some red lava there. If this flow over here is also the recent flow, this could be wrapping around this direction as well. I think it probably is here. So there's that one. We have it dark and poor frames. It'll be really spectacular. And we don't usually have views from these other webcams, but for the first time we do. Here is the tower cam from the former Wekahuna Bluff Jagger Observatory. So there's a roof of the Jagger Museum, the edge of the crater, and you see there's a fissure visible all across the downdrop block with the whole rest of the caldera in view. There's Kilauea in the background. Pu'ai and Mauna Ulu is visible way back here in the background. So really amazing to see this full landscape view with all these other summit features, because the lava has filled the deep hole so far that now it's in the shallow part of the stadium where everyone can see it from every direction, it seems like. Continuing, KW2 camera, the other tower camera, a similar kind of view, slightly different. We'll keep it going. And this is the KI camera. So this was clearer earlier. Now you see a lot of fog, but there's a little bit of red coming in at the bottom of that camera for once as well. K2 camera, there it is once again, that biggest fountain visible at the edge of that camera down there. And finally, from the strip road up on Mauna Loa's flank at 6,000 feet plus elevation, looking down at Kilauea, there is the full totality of that gas cloud. You can see the bulk of it. Like maybe it goes to a right in there. So it hasn't quite traversed all the way to Ka'u yet, perhaps, down to South Point. But you can see it moving, and we'll expect to see effects shortly. We'll check in on that here next. So yeah, that's the next thing we'll do. We'll go to the VOG measurement and projection project from School of Ocean and Earth Sciences and Technology at University of Hawaii Manoa. And they put out these maps. This map was put out with the forecast from yesterday when we only had 70 tons coming out of the ground. I would be surprised if we have less than 10,000 now. So what we can really get from this is the pattern of which way the wind is blowing rather than the actual colors and concentrations themselves, because tomorrow's map will look a lot more dramatic than this one. But you can basically see the wind is blowing in that direction from Kilauea, right? So that would be the area of expected effect, would be down here from South Hawaii, this whole leeward area up to perhaps Waikoloa and the lee side of Mauna Loa here might be in for some bad VOG coming up. When I checked this earlier, we didn't have any reports coming in, but now our purple air, we're trying it live today, and hopefully this does not break our stream. But we actually have here in Pahala, yellow air quality. Here's our graph spiking up into the yellow here just recently. So there is confirmation that's above 50 ppm of PM 2.5 air quality in Pahala, and also down here in Ocean View by Kahuku Fens seems to be in that same threshold as well. So here comes the gas. And that's our main concern here for people. Now, the last thing to share with you guys before we wrap it up here is viewing. So the park is going to be very busy. The sooner you can get up there to wait in line and find a spot, the better you are, because everyone is headed there right now. The eruption is down in Halema'uma'u crater in here, but also on this upper ledge right through there, which means anywhere from Uekahuna Jagger Museum to Kilauea Overlook to Wahine Kapu, aka the Steaming Bluff area, all three here, these should all have good views, right? As far as the volcano house as well, I would expect volcano house is looking straight onto this fissure, and likely the gas continues blowing in this direction. Sometimes overnight it can stagnate and move into the caldera areas more so. So if you are in a park, please heed all signs and ranger warnings for the gas concerns as well. Right? But for now, at current conditions, it's blowing off to the southwest, and so it seems good air for breathing all around. And I would expect that really anywhere all around you can get good views. Coming around Volcano House and even the old site here at Devastation Trail, Kanakakoi, you're getting pretty close here to this actual site. But possibly the gas blowing across might make it not as conducive. So we'll await images coming in from the public, from our Hawaii Tracker membership, and we'll be able to post a better viewing guide as time goes on here.
Right.
So that is the map itself. I did want to, of course, mention that our streaming partners, Two Pineapples, are live on scene right now. Here is their stream. We will pass you off to them when we're done here. You see they got multiple cameras going. They're zoomed in a little more, so you can see the individual fountains much more clearly. Right. Whereas the USGS is also quite nice, showing a different angle, different perspective of the fissure line from that reverse angle there. Right. So really cool to see all of that happening here. And just in case anyone wants to jump in and ask, I will just note preemptively here, Mauna Loa is still not affected by what's happening in Kilauea. Maybe it might show some little deflation, but in any case, it's all minor and nothing of concern on Mauna Loa for now. So I'll put the live stream back up here on screen. And Dane, I'll let you share your thoughts at this point.
Yeah, I was just going back a little bit. There's questions about Devastation Trail maybe being obstructed, the view from there with the crater wall and stuff like that. Like, it's hard to know. We need to see some photos really to see like what exactly can you see from the public trail, essentially, right?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there are some parts, especially the part below this cliff right here, is going to be hard to see from anywhere above, apart from maybe the north, because you can see some of this from the north. Maybe not exactly that little nook.
Right.
But if you're over at Kupinaipali or Volcano House, you may not catch any of this stuff right in here, but you might see all this in its full glory potentially. Right. So it really depends on the angle, what you might see. In the past, you could not see all the fountains from any one location. You had to go to multiple locations to see all the fountains from the ground, at least, right? And from the areas open to the public as well, because this camera we're looking at right now is in the closed area of the park that USGS has set this up.
Does look like that primary vent or that initial vent started maybe. I mean, it's hard to tell because it's starting to get into the lake, it looks like, potentially, where it's erupting through the liquid more. But it doesn't look as vigorous, potentially, as maybe a hour ago or a half hour ago.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, when it was a single site. Yeah, it's like this is the cliff right here, right?
Right
through here. So there's actually quite a bit of this down drop block over here has been flooded as well. There's another river coming off in that direction.
It'll be interesting to see if it tries to pivot to another vent or something like along those lines, or if it stays primary active at that one in the lake, or just to see how this thing evolves over time. Because we did see that last one walk a little bit, the last eruption over to the wall. Right. And that's one of the questions I keep hearing. It's like, is it going to walk to the wall? And it's kind of just like, I think it'd be really cool, like, to be able, if it did do that, the pretty dramatic views, I would assume.
I would not be surprised if it focuses on that wall, right? I would not say it's the most likely thing to happen. Maybe it's the most likely thing of all the very small likelihoods,
right?
But there are many things how many ways this could go, but that would not be surprising.
Yeah.
So one thing I could do with this live stream here is actually pull it back. Let's see if I can do this. Just to give you a little sight where our timestamp now is 16:42 up here, and that's our. Let's see how we would go back to 15:52. A bit of a rainbow coming in. You see at this point in time, we don't have that vent in the very back wall over there. It looks a little bit higher here in the foreground. Let's pull it back a little bit more. Well, camera zoomed in a little more in this case, but yeah, you see that full upwards V fountain. Pretty cool.
Right.
Come back a little bit
more
further.
The lava dome. It's looking like the current.
Yeah, this middle one here has also been shooting pretty high in there. We haven't done the exercise of how long it takes for this piece of lava to fall down. 1, 3, yeah, so it's probably a couple 100 feet somewhere in there.
Seems
Pull it back
reasonable.
a little bit further. And so from this last view to here, it's like note this this burst of vent here. That's at the upper part of this black lava covered part of the downdrop block. So if I pull it back a little bit more from here, I'm trying to get everything on the screen at the same time. There it is. And note that this is 1525, right? There's still nothing on a downdrop block over here, but it has covered this lower area. I'll pull it back a little bit more, 1523, 1522, 20. And,
Yeah, this is the part where the camera
that's
right before it goes.
Very beginning, 15,
Yeah.
18.
There's that puff of smoke coming out.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
So right up here in the top left.
We'll edit this down
There it
and
is,
make
yeah.
it cleaner.
Yeah. So in any case, just to give you guys a little bit of a view, that first burst, you can pull back right there. Look at that. You see there is that first burst here in the foreground, and you can see the initial burst of the second one just starting to come up right there. This time stamp of 1515 here. So that's the opening sequence so far, and it'll be really interesting to assemble some time lapses for you guys, showing the lava flowing around the crater floor over the next few hours, the next few days. We just want to make sure that everyone knows that there is no imminent threat from this, and there's going to be great viewing. So we'll pass you over to Two Pineapples, unless we want to do some wrap up here first, Dane, or after we do the wrap up here.
Yeah. Just want to thank everybody for tuning in today. We rely on viewers like you to help share this message, get it out there on social media. The likes, subscriptions, all that stuff does help with the algorithm. So we appreciate that. And we have Two Pineapples in chat. Appreciate it. Yep, windy up there and a lot of traffic, it sounds like, but great views. We'll be passing everybody over to Two Pineapples in a moment. But first, I wanted to throw out there that we are the Hawaiian Volcano Education and Resilience Institute. We're a nonprofit. We rely on donations to do so. If you would be so kind, we take those on hferry.org. And yeah, your money goes through helping us provide content like this, as well as our digital resilience program and many other things that we're involved in. So we appreciate that support, everyone. And we did have a couple questions if you want to try those that I didn't get to answer in chat.
Sure.
Left them on the side for a minute. All right, so I think we answered this one about where's the best place to view from. We just went through that. Will that spatter cone climb up the wall? We answered that one a little bit. It would be cool, potentially. And I'm curious about the big crack on the outer edge. When did it happen? I don't remember it. Is there a big crack that we can see?
Do they mean like this stuff up in here, or this thing?
Probably that in the crack of that wall right there.
I think that's all from 2018, right? So I can pull us back, for example. Let's find one of these views from earlier that maybe shows that area. It's not going to be zoomed in as a problem, right?
And it'll be rainy, and it'll.
But
that might be the thing. Is like now the camera's zoomed in, so that you can actually see these things. Where before we just never had that great of definition to be able to identify stuff.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cracks in the ground here. You really don't see, even from this kind of blurry image, so much of the crack in the wall, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a little bit of a hint. Maybe there's a little bit of a hint of it in there, but it certainly is possible that as a fissure is spreading the ground apart, that it is opening the cracks there as well, right?
There was, remember when I was talking about that when we were getting ready to go live, and I spotted that fissure on the back wall. There was a collapse of a small collapse off of that down drop block, rock collapse, and I was just thinking, oh, that's just coincidence, but it might have been something trying to split in there. It wasn't in the same spot. It was on the other side of the fissure from where that crack is located. If that's the crack that they're talking about, we might just be.
Yeah, The other thing that really, yes, I can see here's a crack up in here too. The other thing that concerns me a little bit is it's a lot of this has to do with the lighting as well. And as the light
Right.
comes over from east to west, it accentuates these features more or less too. So I'm inclined to believe that it was there already, because here you see this is the early image of the fissure is only this far, and the crack is back there already. Right? So it's just, I think it's more just zoomed in the lighting, to be honest, in that particular case. But yeah, interesting to note. Certainly keep looking for any changes, because you never know what you might pick up and what we might see after the fact here.
Right. We'll do one last
really
one. Bill asks, can you outline the whatever's left of the original Big Island from that first eruption? Is it still visible at all?
Okay, I think we'll probably go back to the KW camera, and I think it still is in there. It's right in the middle. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. It's right in the middle. So, all right, let me try to reload this too, just because it might look even better here. All right, so not as easy to see, but there, that bit right in there, you see this little bit of yellow. I think that's some of that sulfur deposits and other minerals that are coming up through that very pumice-like central island here. So it's more or less right in here. It's not anywhere as big as it was, because the last few eruptions have kind of come onto the edges and they've shrunk, and so it's gotten smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. There's only a little bit still sticking up. This central part is the part of the crust of the lava lake that seems to rise. It floats as the lava fills underneath it, and so that seems to sit high, and the edges around it seem to be a low, like a moat. So this is a pattern we've seen over the last few eruptions, where lava seems to sweep around in these big arcs along the sides. Eventually will meet back in the middle, and then it'll flood the center from there, close it in. This era where the lava covers the entire crater floor, it hasn't happened quite yet, but it wouldn't be surprising if it happened tonight, overnight. That usually lasts only a few days before it then starts shrinking back to nearer wherever the vents happen to settle. And that could be anywhere along this fissure line, or we may still see some vents opening up here in the next few hours, potentially. I want to say that one of our eruptions, we might have seen the vents in a lava lake shifting over the first perhaps 6 hours even. So we're not quite out of it yet. I haven't seen as much change recently on a camera, so I think we might be stabilizing, but we'll have to wait and see.
All right. Well, I think that does it for questions. Again, this was just kind of a short stream. We'll be coming back, I think, tomorrow, and we'll have more stuff put together. There will be more things that are released. We'll be able to sequence things and be able to tell this story better. But right now, we want to pass everybody over to Two Pineapples, because they really do have, the shot to share tonight. And it's going to become golden hour here in a little bit, and the lighting will just be great as the evening progresses, and they'll be able to, as long as the weather holds. That's always the variable up there, right? Is if that weather holds. But if it does, and it looks decent right now, we could really get some great shots out of them tonight. And I'm going to be checking in there often tonight. It's just like that.
How lucky are we to have all these extra views and have a crew so dedicated to bringing us such amazing spectacles of nature here. Yeah.
Well, we were done with questions, but Andre, a friend of ours that helps out with the time lapse and stuff, asked, is this the old rift in the crater that we were looking at?
The old rift? I don't believe so, no. So if I come back once again to the early part of that webcam, let me find it once again here. Yeah, it's hard. Maybe the video is what I want. Come back to the video, and let's go back to where we don't have as much stuff in the way. Open, too much gas, close. It really gets gassy fast here, huh? I'm trying to scrub it to just the right spot. Maybe there, maybe that one I should, right? So it's hard to tell exactly right through here, but I believe this higher piece of ground, it actually comes more through here, Andre. I believe that if you're referring to what I believe, the April 1982 fissure that cuts across the caldera floor. This was up in the caldera floor and then rode the collapse in 2018 to this 400 feet down from where it originally was. And that's another fissure that I actually came across Halimaʻamau in a very similar area. And that was a thought that I had as well. But this appears to be, to me, like it's a little bit, it's trending a little bit more to the east as far as I can tell from here. But we'll have to actually wait the maps because there's some distortion here and it's hard to tell. But I appreciate the question and I appreciate your help with the time lapses. We'll be featuring a lot of those tomorrow, we believe. So mahalo, Andre. And yeah, that's the best I can answer here. It's a curious thought whether it might reuse that same crack from before. But I think really since 2018, there's been so much change that it's hard to imagine that the old weaknesses of cracks are still the most likely weaknesses of cracks today.
Yep. All right. Well, good. Well, thank you. And thanks everybody for that tuned in today. I think that'll do it for us. We will try and come back to you tomorrow around 5 p.m. Pretty much our standard time.
Yeah, let's have that be tentatively. Presuming nothing actually changes as far as the eruption site. If it stays within a caldera, then all good. We won't break back in. But if something does change and it pops out of the crater for some reason, we will come back in as well. Just because that'll be a change. We're going to make sure everyone knows what's going on as well. But all looking good, looking clear. It's evolving. Look at our vent here in a back wall. Seems to be dribbling some more streaks of black lava, like it's trying to flow out a little bit more up here as well. Yeah, it still has a little ways to go, and yeah, some fume coming up here behind it. We'll see if it's done or if it intensifies back here as well.
Right. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Make sure to hit the like button on your way out. I'm going to spam the 2 Pineapples stream in the chat a little bit. There you go. There's a whole bunch of links. Just click one and you should be right there. And say hi to Lou for us. Lou and Ann. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate Carrie and Dano for doing the sign language interpretation for us. Thank you as always. And that'll do it for me.
All right. Thanks, Dane. Thanks, Carrie and Dano. Appreciate you guys and appreciate our Big Island Deaf community joining as well. So we're happy to be able to support you guys as well. Go enjoy the show online, in person, and plan for potentially there might be some rain. It might be getting a little chilly at night here recently, and it's going to be busy as far as traffic. So make sure you're prepared for some time to wait as well. All right, everybody. Mahalo. Enjoy the eruption. From H. Very, he's Dane DuPont. I'm Philip Ong. Aloha, everybody.